Peace family, it's Johnny Lamar X. Do you ever feel like you can't get anything done? And what I mean is, you have these ideas, and these ideas get you ecstatic. You become so happy, and you start thinking about how you're going to manifest the ideas that are in your mind. But for some reason, you never get it done. Have you been sitting on the same idea for the past months, or maybe even year or years? And you see things happening around you and you feel stuck. You wonder, why is it that you can't manifest the way that you may see other people seem to manifest? I understand. I dealt with that for years. So today I'm going to share some things that I've done throughout the years in order to get better at this. And I still deal with this, but not like I used to. And it really boils down to identifying what they call counter intentions. You have intentions, and then you have counter intentions. Counter intentions are the things that stop your original intent. Meaning, you want to get something done, but then when you start to move out on it, you start thinking about all the reasons why you can't do it, or why right now is not the best time. Or you get stuck like myself, you'll get stuck in study mode. You got to study and get it. You have to cross all your T's and dot all your I's before you can get started. That can be a hindrance. So today I'm going to talk about how to get through it. And it really boils down to emotional intelligence and identifying your triggers. All right. So we're talking about overcoming the self-doubt and the sabotage. So when you're taking a look at starting a project, most of the time we get excited, we're happy, but then we can feel a certain level of procrastination, or we can feel a certain level of anxiety. And that anxiety is usually because we become overwhelmed. We're not really clear. That's the key to handling anxiety. Once you want to start to do something, you have to get crystal clear. Crystal clear. Not saying that you're going to know all the steps involved, but you just need to get clear on point A, on what you're going to do to take steps forward. That's it. Only focus on point A. And oftentimes taking action towards point A will make point B clearer, or maybe even C too. You may see B and C just by stepping on point A. Then we're talking about procrastination. Procrastination, when it comes to doing something new, isn't always bad. And that's because when it comes to doing something new, your body just wants comfort. If you weigh 300 pounds, you know you want to lose weight. So you already have in your mind you want to start the project. You weigh 300 pounds and you my size, you 5'9". So you know you need to lose weight. But because you're not used to eating right, because you're not used to hitting the gym, what happens is you procrastinate. And you may get anxiety too because you don't really know how. Yeah, on the surface we know more calories, less exercise means more weight. Less calories, more exercise means less weight. We know that. So how come, even though logically we know that, how come it's still hard to do it? All right? Usually it's the anxiety and the procrastination that comes with it. And that anxiety you don't have to know everything. Just take what you do know. Hey, I'm going to just try salads. Right? And I'm going to get up and walk. That's all I know. Usually that just going to point A will lead you to point B. And it may even lead you to point B and C. Who knows? But the procrastination part comes in. That's a good thing because it lets you know that it's time to do some real meaningful work. most of the time, the stuff that comes easy to us, we don't really have to, we don't really procrastinate on it because it's easy. If J.K. Rowling, who's the author of Harry Potter, I don't know, she may get some procrastination for writing a book because it is work, but I'm quite sure she doesn't get the procrastination that a new author who never wrote a book, she's not going to feel the same level of procrastination. Or if she does, mentally, she's aware enough that this is just part of the process. So it still doesn't make her stop from doing it. Now, right here, we're going to go to over preparation. So once you get clear on what it is that you want to do, and once you understand that resistance is just part of it, that procrastination, that's just your body wanting to resist it because your body wants to keep you the same. Our bodies want to keep us the same, even if we know change is better. It's the pain versus pleasure principle. More pleasure, less pain. Even if pleasure is killing us, our nervous system would rather deal with pleasure and just die, even though our minds know better. So, once we get past the anxiety and procrastination part, and we do have the idea, and we're clear on it, now it goes into the second part, the over preparation. And this comes because we start second guessing ourselves. Things like, I don't have enough money. Things like, I don't have enough time. Things like, I don't know enough yet. All of that comes right here. And this right here, and I'm a living witness to it, this right here can make you stay still for months and even years. And eventually, I like to look at it like this. Ideas have a certain fire to them, almost like a pixie dust. If you're old enough to remember Peter Pan, Peter Pan was able to fly off of something called pixie dust. When he ran out of pixie dust, he would fall. So, ideas are like pixie dust. They have a certain level of energy to them. The moment you get an idea, you gotta act right then. And that momentum builds and builds, right? But the moment you stop, the pixie dust just falls. And it's just like a bird. It's easier to fly, to soar, I believe, than it is to start flying. I'm quite sure that takes more energy to start flying. So in order to get momentum, you have to start. In order to keep momentum, you just have to keep taking action. Because if not, this could turn into a lifetime. Oftentimes, I heard somebody put it to me like this. He said, Jay, we all were meant to wear the crown. We all were meant to wear the crown. But some of us just take forever to put it on. Something like that. He said something similar to that. It's like a mentor I had. And what I took from that was, man, it could take you 2 or 3 years just to put that crown on. It may take you a lifetime to put the crown on. And all you have to do is just put it on. Usually, we're one belief away from that breakthrough. And that's what this is all about. This part right here, this is about limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs. This is straight limiting beliefs. When you get to this point and you start talking yourself out of it, you have to know it's only because of a limiting belief. You have to know, if I intended to go to the gym, if I'm weighing 300 pounds and I intended to go to the gym, I intended to start a diet this year and it stopped, I guarantee it's a limiting belief. You just have to find out where it's at. But it's definitely a limiting belief. And that's what I really want to talk about. It's for me, this is it right here. I'm more, it's 5 parts to this. But right now, I just want to focus on the 3 because a lot of people deal with these 2 right here. Getting clear and clearing the limiting beliefs once they want to get clear. Because there are people out there who like this right here. They really just don't know. It's like you can't trust yourself, really. You know what I'm saying? Because every time you say you're going to do something, you don't do it. What helps me out is thinking, okay, it's not that we don't do it. There are some things that you really trust yourself on. That's what confidence comes from. Confidence is really just trusting yourself, really. There are some things you are really confident about. Who knows what it is, right? But there are some things that you may not be too confident about. And that's usually due to you not doing it often. So you can't build the confidence. In order to build the confidence, you have to do it. But the only thing that's stopping us from doing it is the limiting beliefs. Once we clear the limiting beliefs, it's almost inevitable that we'll complete the project. Because this is what we want. To be able to say, I want to do this, take something out of my mind, prepare it, and present it. That's being it is. That's a real God-like quality. To be able to say, this is what I want to do, I'm going to do it, and I'm able to present it. That's big, man. So that's the thing we're going to focus on. This is what causes the doubt right here. This is what the doubt is right here. This causes the self-sabotage. And it really has to do with the self-image. So I just wanted to drop that on y'all. I'll be back. All right, peace. So we talked about the limiting beliefs, but one of the ways to find the limiting belief is through your self-talk. And the self-talk is very telling of your emotional state. But in order to become aware of your emotional state, you need to be in a place of calm or silence. And what I mean is this. If you find yourself saying, let's use the losing the weight example again. If you find yourself saying, I can't lose weight, there it is. That's the surface of the limiting belief, right? I can't lose weight. Stay right there and ask yourself, why do I think that? I think they call this Socratic questioning. I think Socrates created this. Why do I think I can't lose weight? Is that a fact? Probably not. Did you go to a doctor and a doctor tell you that you can't lose weight? Is that what happened? Probably not. Sorry about that. Probably not. So, and a good way to do it is write it down. Let me show you. So, we have the negative belief. The negative belief is I can't lose weight. That's the negative belief. Then we question that belief with, is this true? And obviously it's not, because no medical professional has told you that you can't lose weight. There's no evidence based in actual fact that says you can't lose weight. So now we know that it's just a belief. And that goes to show how our beliefs don't even have to be based in fact. We can just assume a false belief and it still governs the way that we live our lives, and we see it. It reflects itself in our outer reality. We can see it in our everyday lives, even though we're living off of a false belief. But the effects of that false belief are real in our lives. So because you believe you can't lose weight, you don't. That goes to show how our truths are always true. It just may not be the truth, because this is true to a person who's 5'9" and 300 pounds, and they've been that way for most of their lives, and
They want to lose weight. Their intention is to lose weight, but that belief stops them from ever doing it. So once we start to ask ourselves, is this true? Of course it's not. Then we have to sit back and say, okay, if this is not based in actual fact, why don't I lose it? Well, damn, have I eaten right? Yes, I've tried diets, but I'm just not consistent. That's one. Not consistent with diet. Maybe one reason you're not losing weight. Why am I not consistent? Because I don't believe I can lose weight. See how that works? If you don't believe you can really lose weight, you're not going to be consistent with it. And then you sit back and ask yourself, okay, I'm not consistent with it because I don't believe I can lose weight. And this just perpetuates itself. This belief causes you not to be consistent with the diet. And since you're not consistent with the diet, you don't lose weight. And that just reinforces this same thing. And now you're living in this loop. So how do we stop this loop? We stop this loop with positive reinforcement. Positive enforcement. So when you catch yourself saying, I can't lose weight, you always go right back to, is this true? And since it's not, you stop it. I can lose weight with a consistent diet. So now you're canceling that out every time. Every time you think I can't lose weight, you cancel it out. You cancel it out with I can lose weight with a consistent diet. A consistent diet. And what's happening is the same way a person conditioned themselves to believe they can't lose weight, now they're going to condition themselves to believe that they can lose weight. It's the same thing over and over and over. Let's take it to the scripture right quick. The scripture says that the worlds were formed by the word of God. Something to that effect, right? What is a world? A world is a reality. And I can tell the reality a person is living in based off the words that they use. Because words, they don't only describe thoughts, but they form and condition thoughts. And like I just talked about, a thought governs our lives. And our lives create our world. You know, we have a world based off of the way we think. And those words not only describe our thoughts, they form and condition our thoughts. So every time a person says, I can't lose weight, they're creating a world. They're forming and conditioning that thought all over again. It isn't until they say a new word and they have that positive reinforcement, over time, they'll create a new world. But that's the power of self-talk. Because every time a person says, I can't lose weight, they're killing their own self-esteem. Over and over. If someone was to tell a person that they can't lose weight, if they were to just say it, you can't lose weight, or you're stupid, or you'll never be rich, would you hang around a person like that? If it was you and you're having health problems and a person says you'll never get well, you're going to always be sick, and this person always comes in your life and tells you that everything that you want to start to improve your life, this person comes to your house unannounced and sows doubt in your mind in order to keep you in that same reality. How long would you allow that person to stay in your life? Because if you really love yourself, you will counsel that person the same way that you'll counsel that self-talk that you can't do something. Because what happens is that reinforces a low self-image or a bad self-image, and it creates low self-esteem. Self-esteem is directly related to your self-image, and you can't really outperform your self-image. The way you see yourself is the way you think about yourself. And as you think in your heart, which is your subconscious and unconscious mind, so you will be. You have to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And your mind has a lot to do with your self-image and your beliefs and your experiences. Your mind is basically yourself. It's basically your memories or your experiences, your knowledge or your intellect, and your self-image and your beliefs about that self-image that's based off of your memories and your knowledge about it. Hope that's not too confusing. If so, leave a message in the comment. I'll expound on it at a later date. So this is something that keeps us in that loop. This is something that keeps us on the scale on that over procrastination stage and that over preparation stage, because it's all due to limiting beliefs.
Peace, family. So we have to feel our emotions, because for the most part, as humans, we're really governed by our emotions. That's why we can think of something that we want to do and still not do it because we don't feel like it. Most people operate off how we feel. So if you know that the average person, we operate off how we feel, then the thing is, the smart thing to do would be to scan your body or take time and just become more aware or mindful of the way that you feel. I do this by a process called the 3-step process. And what I do is throughout the day, I put my timer on my phone. And throughout the day, I just take time to just be present and sit back and see how I feel. Sometimes I might write it down and journal it. And what this does, it helps me reflect on what my triggers are. And now that I know what my triggers are, I work on them. See what I mean? And I start to master myself that way, because I'm in a real relationship with myself. And notice how you feel during certain times of the day, or when certain things occur. How does your body react to it? Because that's where your feelings really are. And once you learn your feelings and you learn how to master and manage your feelings, we start to manage our actions better. And once we manage our actions better, we manage our life better. All right, peace. Peace. We often hear about affirmations. And I'm going to be honest with you. When I first heard about affirmations, I thought it was bullshit. Because I knew I wasn't anywhere near the things that I wanted to manifest. So saying something like, I'm a millionaire, and I know I'm not, it just felt like bullshit. Even though I would read where it would say it over and over until you feel it. I learned something different. What helps me is saying things like, if I have a project that I want to complete, I try to visualize the steps that need to be done, and then I will say something as in, I'm so grateful that I now have the focus and energy to get blank project done in a decent amount of time. That would be the affirmation that I would say. Now, along with that,
I may have a goal or a vision of having a certain amount of money, but I understand that it's going to take certain levels of consciousness and awareness in order to even attain that level. So let's just say if I was shooting for $100,000, but I don't have $5,000 yet, I would visualize at least making my first 5,000. That would be my goal. And I would say affirmations that were in harmony with the level of consciousness that it would take to achieve getting that $5,000. That's what it means by taking on the spirit of something. Spirit is simply the thoughts of something, really. That's what a spirit is. A spirit is breath by definition, but it's the thoughts that describe that spirit. It's the thoughts that create that spirit for what we know it to be. If someone said you had an Adolf Hitler spirit, what would they be saying? They don't mean an Adolf Hitler breath. They mean you have Adolf Hitler thoughts, which probably are described by Adolf Hitler words and followed up by Adolf Hitler actions. See where this is going? So if your goal is to make $5,000, you want to have that $5,000. Say if your goal is to make $5,000 a month, you want to have that $5,000 a month spirit. What would you think? What would be your verbiage if you were making $5,000 a month? And only speak that way. That's it. What would you handle this or that said problem like if you were already that person making the $5,000 a month? All right, even though the $100,000 a month may be your vision, but the goal right now is $5,000 a month. So the affirmations that I would suggest to say would be things that are in alignment with that goal. I'm so grateful now that I have the time and energy and the focus to work on said project, and it renders me $5,000 a month. That's a cool affirmation, other than saying I'm a millionaire, because your brain can easily accept that, and that's what you want. You want your subconscious mind to be able to get emotionally involved in it. That's when things start attracting, once we get the emotion part of it to turn on. So that would be a good affirmation, a way to say an affirmation. And you always want to express gratitude, because gratitude automatically raises your level of consciousness. There's a book by, I believe his name is, I can't remember the guy's name, but it's called Power versus Force. That's a good book. It has a map of consciousness, and it shows all the lower levels of consciousness and the higher levels of consciousness. And it's the higher levels of consciousness that we need in order to manifest things and manifest them faster. But in order to do it, being grateful raises our consciousness higher and higher. Most of the time, if you're in a very, very low emotional state, oftentimes it's because you're not grateful. Not saying that we don't fall into low emotional states, but we shouldn't stay there. If we're always operating from a very, very low level of consciousness, usually it's because we're not grateful. So gratitude, always put that into your affirmation, because if you include that in your affirmation, it automatically raises your consciousness right there, and it's going to make things happen faster. And say it whenever you get that bad or that self-doubt about what it is that you're trying to do. Whenever that comes up, you want to cancel it out with that affirmation, a believable affirmation. And what happens is this reprograms your subconscious mind, and your neurons start firing differently, and that starts to create a new reality right there. So just want to drop that in on your piece.